So thank you everyone for attending. As Ahmed has mentioned, we will be talking about Power Platform adoption and governance today. So I'll be presenting on that, and hopefully you find something useful in regards to that, and we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. So there's opportunity to interact and talk about it. So to introduce myself, my name is Azim Zicar. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I've been involved in the low-code space for the last couple of years now. I started with RPA, robotic process automation, and from there I really enjoyed low-code and wanted to then go into, further deeper into it, and that's when I came across the Power Platform. And the main thing that I enjoyed about Power Platform is that it includes so many different tools within it that it's a bit more versatile than RPA, where you're just focusing on automating processes. So now my full-time focus is on Power Platform specifically and adopting Power Platform. So I help big enterprise clients taking in Power Platform within their organization and getting value from it at a bigger scale. So, one of the traits I have in my personality is that I enjoy breaking down complex concepts into, simple and easy to digest language. So I guess that's why I like the boring topic of adoption and governance. And I'm hoping that today I can, break that down for you in regards to Power Platform, the adoption and governance of that currently, and how you, go about it. Hopefully it's in a simple enough way for you to understand. So that's me. Now, I would like to hear about the audience here, present here and online. If you go to this link here, you'll be able to put in your job title in your industry. So if you can just please visit this link, whether you are online or whether you are in person, and then just put in your job title and your industry. That will give me a good understanding of who is in the audience today. And, as we go through the presentation, then it'll be good to kind of cover some examples. So I'll leave that for a minute here whilst I wait for some inputs to come in. Okay, so thank you for that, guys. Wow, okay, we've got a pretty interesting audience today. So we've got developers. That seems to be kind of our main audience today, which is great. Some RPA people, good to see here, analysts, architects. So I think it's pretty diverse, and I think a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, it is more relevant for architects than developers. But I think from a developer's perspective, it is good for you to also be aware of Power Platform adoption and governance, because a lot of the times we focus on building apps and just getting the products out there. But it's good to have the bigger context as to how is the business applying Power Platform, and what is the end goal when they're applying Power Platform. So it helps when you're doing your job as a developer to kind of understand those bigger goals, the business goals, and then work towards that together with the rest of the team. So thank you very much, guys, for filling this in. I think I've got a good idea of who we've got here. So on to the next one. So for today's presentation, I will quickly talk about adoption and governance and the terminology around that, as well as some common kind of things that I run up on the field, some practical realities, because sometimes you have some realities which is online and materials, and when you're actually on the ground doing the work, then you have different challenges and different things that come up. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I will also cover, after that, the existing tools. What's available currently on the market if you want to do Power Platform adoption and governance. And I'll try to go into as much detail as possible on that to try and expose those tools to you guys today. And after that, it will be some common themes, things that I come across quite frequently when it comes to Power Platform adoption. And at the end, if we have time, we'll do a little bit of a Q&A, and we'll take questions from the audience here and online if possible. So, to start, what is the difference between adoption and governance? So the main thing that you'll find is that adoption and governance are two terms that are used synonymously. So sometimes you'll hear a vendor call their product an adoption product, but it's actually a governance product, and vice versa. The main thing is adoption is about bringing in technology. So in the case of Power Platform, is how we can bring Power Platform as an enterprise level tool to add value to the business. So that's what we mean by adoption, adding a new application to the existing stack, whereas governance is more after you've done your adoption. It's more about now we've got the tool into our business, it's part of our enterprise architecture. How do we monitor it and make sure that it meets the goals we set when we decided to adopt the product? So that's essentially a very subtle difference, but and it is used synonymously. They do kind of overlap between them. So it's very easy to kind of use one or the other. But the main thing is that we all understand what it roughly means, and that's what's important. So these are the ground realities when it comes to Power Platform adoption and governance at the moment, and this is purely based on my experience helping customers adopt Power Platform. I know that a lot of our audience in the user group is focused on Power BI and has a lot of interest in Power BI. Power BI being a very mature product on its own right, but when I'm looking specifically at Power Platform and companies that are looking to adopt Power Platform at enterprise level, a lot of the times they're really focusing on Power Apps. That's essentially the starting point. So when they say Power Platform, a lot of the times they mean Power Apps. And, because it is really what brings a lot of attention to the Power Platform, as it's very easy to understand the product, and you can build a lot of different applications that then, starting from Power Apps, everything else on the Power Platform gets leveraged. So that's the first ground reality. A lot of the times when we're doing anything in regards to Power Platform adoption, any strategies, a lot of the times it comes back to Power Apps, and the Power Platform gets included because of that starting point. The next thing that happens quite a lot on the field is also citizen development. So a lot of customers, they're fascinated by this concept of citizen development, and they want to enable their workforce to kind of be able to do a lot of things with low technical abilities. So the focus is to use Power Platform to enable the citizen developers to produce a lot of great work. So personally, I feel that you should concentrate on non-citizen development first and get that right before you start getting your citizen developers involved. So that's kind of something I've experienced as well. And for the last 2 points, the other point is a lot of customers have already started some type of adoption and governance with Power Platform before I get involved or you'll get involved, because it's a Microsoft product and it's been launched already for a few years. It is unlikely you'll find a business that's as an enterprise business that hasn't already used Power Platform in some shape or form. A lot of citizen developers have already started using it. That's the likely outcome. And then you're coming in to begin the governance and adoption process, not really from ground zero. There is some work already been done, and you've got to then retrospectively apply some adoption and governance kind of measures. And the main thing is that for the last point here, a lot of people think that if you have a tool, a technical tool, you'll be able to do adoption and governance, and that's not how it works. You can't. A technical tool will not bridge the gap between this deficit of it's a strategic deficit, not a technical one. So the tools are there to start and help you. So a lot of the tools I'll show you today They're there to kind of help you in your adoption or governance journey, but on their own, it's maybe not enough. You need to have the right expertise to be able to do that. So what are the current challenges regarding this? The first challenge is that everything is new. So, be it Power Platform, be it low-code, be it citizen development, these are new concepts, relatively speaking, applying when they're being applied on the ground. Now, you might argue that, low-code is not new. We've had expressions in Excel and other forms of low-code. Citizen development isn't new. We've had people in the business building access databases and things like that. And that is correct. The only difference being that at those times we weren't encouraging the business to do that. We weren't encouraging business users to build applications. Whereas with Power Platform, it's a bit different. We're now encouraging them to get involved in what used to be IT related kind of things that we used to be done. Now it's more about actually we encouraging them and we are teaching the business how to leverage low code. So effectively, this is a journey for everyone. Even myself as an adoption specialist, I haven't experienced every single scenario. So I think it's a journey where we're all together, we're all learning together and trying to bring adoption to businesses. So that's the introduction done. Apologies if it's a little bit of a boring topic. I don't have too exciting power apps to show you. I think that's going to come when Ahmed comes into the stage. So I'll cover some of the tools that I talked about. So I've talked about in theory what is Power Platform adoption and governance. So I'll show you some tools now, and hopefully you've seen this before. If not, it'll be interesting. So firstly, Microsoft has got a Power Platform adoption plan already, a workbook. So they have, to some extent, given you some guidance. So if your business has just decided now to think about Power Platform and have a more formal adoption strategy, this is a good place to start. So Microsoft have somewhat of a framework with 3 stages. And they try to give you some tasks to get you on the way. Now, this is in the form of a slideshow. So this is in the form of a slideshow. And, in there they've got different kind of elements. I'll try and see if I can bring that up on screen for you. So this is it. This is the Microsoft adoption workbook. And as you can see, you've got some tools here. So they talk about their adoption framework, and then they give you some tools to help you get started and understand. So here, I find it is pretty linear. So here, Microsoft is starting with assembling your team, and they tell you all about that, along with trying to explain to you why you need a team and who the different members are and things like that. So that's the Microsoft workbook. Now, the thing I find here is that you need to have had some level of experience in adoption to be able to adopt effectively using this particular tool. And yeah, essentially it's just a PowerPoint slideshow, and they do give you some tools within that. It's pretty linear. And ideally, if you're just starting out and you haven't done anything else, it's a good starting point. It gives you some tasks, as well as some understanding as to how Microsoft envisions you should adopt Power Platform.
The adoption time is basically for companies.
Yeah, so the adoption is mainly for enterprises rather than smaller businesses. The smaller businesses will be using Power Platform and Power Apps a bit more informally. This topic is more relevant to enterprises where they want to use Power Platform at larger scale rather than just individuals building apps and not having any formal strategy in place. So this is why then we need some type of framework or formal kind of way to do that, because it's at scale You can't just learn as you do it. Great. So the other one is the Applied Information Sciences Power Platform Adoption Framework. So this framework is a little bit more on the theory side of things. They have a white paper where they explain all of these different elements that they have. So essentially, the main concept here is that the landing zone is your starting point. So, and from there, the main goal of using Power Platform at enterprise level is to bring business value. And how you do that is through enterprise management, which is your governance, and then your solution deployment, and how you bring those solutions that you've developed to life. So the white paper explains all these stages in detail, along with giving you some ideas of what type of tools you should use, but it doesn't necessarily give you any tools. It's more of a theoretical framework. And lastly, I have my own adoption program that I've developed for Power Platform. So I've looked at what was available on the market and tried to fill a gap where there is a mix of theory and practical tools to help you adopt at a larger scale. So this is the framework, and as you can see, I've got 10 different work streams. And if we pick on one work stream, for example, we got the makers work stream. That work stream is all about how you bring in your citizen developers to do the developments themselves in a way that it fits your company's goals. Now, one thing you'll find is that if you have a linear approach, which is what I showed you with Microsoft's adoption program, adoption plan, it's difficult to kind of follow through, because you will think, okay, I haven't assembled a team, so I can't do the next bit. Whereas here, I try to not make it linear. You can, start in any work stream as a starting point, and then, complete from there. Now, as part of that, I also have some tools to help. I'll try and share them with you now. So the first thing that I have is a Power App. So I try to use Power Platform to also build the tools. Oh, that's not coming up. Yeah, so I've got a Power App that I use as a supplement to the framework that I've got. This is to help you navigate through the framework. So if we look, for example, at the Assemble work stream, then I've got some actions there as well. And if you look at an action, for example, if we look at setting up the central repository, this is when you're starting out, you want to have a central location where you're storing all your files. And if you've got a team, you're collaborating with different teams, you've got one place where you fit everything. So with the Power App, you've got that as the action, and then you can track that with different artifacts. For example, here you can link it back to where you've set it up. So as a team, you all can access this and kind of know where you are. And depending on the action, you'll have different artifacts. As you can see here, there's different artifacts, different types of artifacts. And as you fill in your adoption journey, then there is also a dashboard to help you kind of see where you are in that journey. So it's a way to try and communicate where you are in your Power Platform adoption journey. With Microsoft, you will have the maturity model that you could use to kind of communicate that. I tried to make something a bit more visual and easier to understand. So that's the last adoption framework that I'll show you guys today, and how they kind of come up and the tools within that. So if you guys got any questions, well, I'll just switch slides again. It'll be a good time to cover that. Okay, so that's the non-technical kind of tools. Now, if we look at the technical type of tools, so these are the tools that you actually install and configure, and they help you with governance and adoption. Now, I feel that the tools are more towards governance than they are to adoption. The adoption tools are those that I mentioned before. Those are specific to integrating Power Platform in your business and are more business activities. Whereas these tools I'll cover now, they're more governance tools. You actually install and configure them to then assess your tenancy and then make decisions based on that. So I think they both go hand in hand. And I think this particular tool needs no introduction. It's the COE Starter Kit developed by Microsoft. I think all of us that worked in Power Platform are pretty familiar with it. They give you a Power App. As you can see here, this is actually a model-driven app where you can see, the usage of Power Apps in your environment, who's developing is pretty detailed. And then what you can see at the bottom there is a Power BI dashboard. Again, it's equally as insightful. So if you're starting out, again, you've done the adoption plan, you install the COE kit, you'll have a pretty good idea of where you are in your, Power Platform usage within your business. The good thing about this is that it's free as well. It's freely available. The Power Platform team within Microsoft has put a lot of hard work, and I recommend everyone to install it. You'll need a premium license, but once you've set it up, they keep updating it pretty frequently, and it's quite good to use it. Then we have some third-party tools, and the only other tool that I could find that was equally as good as the Microsoft one was this tool here by RunPipe. The way I see it is that it's an extension to the COE kit. It's actually quite, it takes the COE kit and puts it on steroids actually. It's very nice, it looks very nice, and not only does it have insights onto who's using what, but also they try to implement the project plan aspects of it within their tool itself. So if you're looking for that one tool that will help you govern and also plan projects, this seems like an ideal tool to use. After that, again, there aren't too many tools on the market that are suitable to be applied at enterprise level, but Rencore has a good governance tool. Now, the governance tool that I have is for M365, so not just Power Platform, but you'll find that within this tool that they have, you got some elements of Power Platform that can help you with governance and adoption. So it's worth looking at. So in summary, you've got the Power Platform adoption frameworks that are available that I've showed you. And then you also have those technical tools to install and kind of get an insight of your tenancy and go through some tasks that they give you as well.
These are not from Microsoft?
No, those are, so the only one that was Microsoft was the first one, and the other one, the RunPipe and Rencore, these are third-party tools. That's right, yeah, they are paid tools, and they have, one of them is a monthly subscription, the other one I think is an annual subscription. You can go to their website and they'll have full information there, but from my understanding, they are not that expensive as well. They're quite accessible for enterprises. So now that we've covered all of the different tools, I'll talk about the commonly kind of addressed topics. So every time I go into a client, there is some common things that I see that keep coming up. So I'll talk to you about that. And if you are looking at adopting Power Platform in your organization, or you know of someone, they would probably have questions around these things, and hopefully I can give you some insights into them. The first thing is licensing. So we all know that Power Platform comes with Windows, and the good thing about it is that everyone has access to Power Platform, be it an individual or a company. Now, the licensing can be a bit complicated, but essentially you can do a lot of innovation, and you can do Power Platform adoption without purchasing premium licenses. You would have to use a SharePoint list instead of Dataverse, but depending on your level of adoption, so I've had clients with different levels of adoption. Some clients were not interested in citizen developments, other clients were pretty much interested in that, and other clients, big enterprise clients, they had everyone licensed. So again, that will be different for everyone, but what you should know is that without the premium license, a lot of governance and adoption can be implemented, and a lot of business value can be achieved. So my recommendation is start with that first, prove the concept without spending on premium licenses, and then look at spending money on the platform. And again, as you adopt and govern and you become more mature, you'll know how it fits in your organization and if it's worth the investment. The other main topic is the types of developers. So although we say that Power Platform is for citizen developers and we heavily want to market that, the reality is that a lot of companies are still using the central side of things to deliver business value before they go into citizen development. So those two areas, the citizen development and the champion side of things, is pretty new concept for businesses. So majority of the time when you're adopting and doing governance, it's going to be for the central developments, the big developments. And then my recommendation is to always start with that. That's where you get the most value quickly. And then you start focusing on citizen developers and champions. Those are new concepts, relatively speaking, to businesses, to us as well, that are involved in the market. So that would be my recommendation for that. And then last but not least is the DLP policies, which they're easy to understand and set up. It's just about what APIs you want to enable, and those are the connectors you have in your Power Platform environment. Should we allow everyone to use the Twitter connector or not? And I think that to answer that question, you have to think about your environment strategy, because it goes hand in hand. How are you going to allow people to use Power Platform within your business? And that's basically your environment strategy. Are you going to seal off certain departments, certain organizations within your enterprise? So once you've got your environment strategy, then you can talk about DLPs and which connectors to use in which environments and by whom. So to conclude, I think if you're going to ask the question, is there a best tool for Power Platform adoption and governance? The answer is there isn't one. It's what brings value to your business. So any of the tools today that I've shown you, any of the frameworks, they will all bring value to you. It's all about the second point I've got there, the execution. So if you take the Power Platform adoption from Microsoft, the workbook is only a slide, but you execute it pretty well, then you will bring business value, regardless of how complex the adoption framework is. And for the last point there, it's all about you wanting to fancy a little bit of a challenge. I know the topic can be a bit complex, a bit boring. It's more on the business side than the technical side, but it can be exciting if you look at it as a challenge. Try to get involved into something new. So for all the developers here today, all the architects, it is important to look into Power Platform adoption in your organization. So if it's not being looked at in a formal way now, I've given you some starting points. Perhaps you could introduce that to your organization. That concludes everything I wanted to share with you today. If you have any questions, I think if we have time. If there's any questions online or in person, I'll be happy to answer them. Yeah, go ahead.
In one of the slides, you showed the challenges which is facing, and you showed there is a recent technology.
Yes.
I think Power BI has been for a while now.
Yes.
So it doesn't apply to that, or does it apply to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you mentioned that Power BI has been available for a long time, maybe 10, 15 years. You're absolutely right. So that's not a new technology, and that's correct. Power BI as an individual product has been available, but Power Platform and low code as a concept, it's relatively new, in technology terms. Maybe in the last 5 years, people have started to adopt it. Now, a lot of the times, we see Power BI as a separate product, even though it's part of Power Platform. So yeah, that statement doesn't apply to Power BI and analytics, because analytics is not new. But Power Platform is new, and using low code, especially at citizen development, that's relatively new. And a lot of the times, like I said, the focus is on Power Apps. So again, that statement is relevant for that, not Power BI. Power BI gets used as a consequence of the overall adoption or as an individual product as well. So thank you for your question. I think that's a good question. Is there any questions from the online, maybe on Teams or YouTube? If there's any, I'm happy to answer those.
So you mentioned that you can buy enterprise first, but actually E5 is good option, which is provided by Microsoft for free for some long period.
Yeah. So your question is around enterprise license and the E5 license. So again, E5 license, even if you have E5, E3, they will still give you the same level of access to Power Platform, which is the non-premium stuff. The premium license is separate. You have to buy that and pay per user. And depending on your company and your suppliers, you'll have different deals. But with E5, E3, E1 or A1, A3, A5 for the education sector, you already have access to Power Platform to some extent, even if it's just Power Automate or Power Apps with the non-premium. Start there first. There is enough innovation you can bring to your business with that. You put Power Platform and you connect it with SharePoint lists, which is the reality on the ground. Majority of businesses start there. So before spending money, this is how you can evaluate what value Power Platform can bring to your company. So as developers, what you can do is create some proof of concepts. You will have access to this. And even if you want to use Dataverse, Microsoft gives you a lot of trials and you can extend up to 3 times. So effectively, you could have 60 to 90 days trial of premium. So there is plenty of availability for you to trial the technology and prove value before spending money on premium licenses. And that's what I recommend. I think if there isn't any more questions, we can wrap it up. Is there anything, Ahmed, from online, in case there is, or shall we wrap it up? Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and I'm looking forward to connect with you on LinkedIn. And if you got any questions after this, please feel free to message me there. Thank you.
One question. Banks usually adopt on-premise solution and this solution.
Yeah.
How would you?
Okay, we've got a late question coming in here. So the banking sector and many other sectors, they have on-premise solutions, and maybe, it might not be the sector, but the countries. Some countries, they still prefer on-premise. So the reality is that Power Platform is more of a cloud platform. You can have an hybrid on-premise kind of setup, but ideally, you need to be on the cloud to leverage Power Platform. So for those clients, when they're looking at their adoption strategy and governance, they really need to reevaluate that approach of using only on-premise. Now, this is easier because it's Microsoft, and I've had this as well with clients where they have sensitive data in their on-premise and they find it easier to put into Azure Cloud than they would if this was a third-party vendor. So the only thing I can say is you need to reevaluate because the way things are moving. If you want to still stay on-premise, I think you'll find a lot of challenges with using products. Most products nowadays is on subscription model and on the cloud. So you will need to do the switch essentially to take a full advantage of it. That it? Perfect. Thank you very much, guys, and looking forward to talk to you on LinkedIn.